So, this is a photograph of my late brother who was born with a visual impairment. And you will see him holding in front of him this object, a miniature version of a French piano. The piano's Eastern materiality and craftsmanship made it part of applied decoration culture of objects in our home. Now my brother, unsure of what the world around him looked like, this visual deprivation opened up a psychological space, leaving him completely groundless. Because I am here in challenge, I know how he turned to piano, so his sound could reinforce for him that he was part of a real surrounding. I feel when he would become restless, this object, his sound and his shape would ground him back to the world. I believe objects have power to alter dimensions of reality in so many ways. And in this context, they become more critical tools. They are markers of our identity formation and the symbols of resistance. As someone who has to deal with things and the meaning in everyday capacity of my life, in making or teaching, I found myself asking, in what circumstances does an object, physical weight, its material, or a particular weight has been made, is outweighed by an emotional weight put into it. When I look at objects from pre-partition, especially in my elders' archive, I see how during migration, these objects were wiped of their functional values and replaced with a completely sentimental one. Looking at my grandfather's object, his travel packed into ornate postcards, and his poem dated 1944 and stretching to 1994, I have become a witness to how his entire mental and creative self migrated and transformed from pre-partition to post-partition identity. How his external circumstances demanded of him to produce a poetry journal, therefore an object. These things have become carriers of my moral right, my moral obligation to not forget. And given the urgency of migration, his objects, now part of my immediate workspace at home, they evoke a slow, humanoid tendency in how they responded to partition. Upon my own migration from Pakistan to US to start my MFA, these artifacts became my monumental references of understanding home, belonging, and alienation. These carved and weaved symbols, which are part of our collective identity back home, when you install them in a new place, you begin to communicate with these symbols in two places at one time. When objects are reconstructed with a longing and displacement of a home, they begin to acquire entirely new knowledge about your actual identity and culture. Through this, I realized that an object, any object, is shaped by the value of our experiences we invest in them. An object always becomes visible through the meanings of these experiences. If you look at the landscape of objects in your home, you are looking at a visual arena of objects which might be generational, spiritual, or about family relationships. These objects hold their power because of particular moment they arrive in someone's life. When I come into contact with my mother's artifacts, her sewing machine or other compulsory artifacts of her dowry, I put into her objects my questions about her female identity. And I use my questions and her objects not to close her narrative, but to open up a space of self-actualization, to understand freedom and restraints in mine and my mother's spaces. Today in contemporary world, all of us continue to collect and display objects to perform our role of individualism. Whether it is designer furniture or a generational artifact, or even phrase that become a shrine of our travel, we use, in even keychains, we use these objects as personal and fictional anthropology to protect, compartmentalize, and extend the boundary of ourselves. And in this, we end up behaving like ethnographers. We become curators of our everyday desires and experiences. Sometimes I feel all of us are a part or a sum of these things. To understand who people are and what they might become, we need to know what goes on between things and people. Which objects should be cherished? Which object should be emotionally valued and what should become part of our knowledge? However, it is surprising how little we know of what things mean to people. When you understand an object and its relationship to people, you begin to defy stereotypes. So if it is my mother's sewing machine or even my own hearing device, you begin to pay attention to object capacity to take an overwhelming knowledge for your identity transformation. I feel the more I make objects, the more I teach, the more they give me immaterial knowledge, and I use this knowledge as counter-narrative catalog to see how they can transform mine and others' lives. These things convey for all of us a moral understanding of our past and present, and it is only in these spaces that we begin to respect the process of understanding narrative so we can become more conscious, more informed, and more empathetic individuals and makers. Thank you.